Welcome back to the channel. Today we have this month's complete set presentation. Today we're going to go all the way back to everybody's favorite condition sensitive set of the 1970s to 1971 to look at the 1971 Topps baseball complete set. The 1971 set is most noted for its complete black borders, which makes this set incredibly hard to be able to find cards in good condition. As you can see, this one's graded out as a 5, and it looks almost flawless, so you can imagine what they're looking for higher condition graded cards. And this one's only got a little bit of white at the top, but that's just enough to take it down to a 5. Most cards you're going to find from the 1971 set are going to be dinged up, so that makes it really hard to be able to build a high condition set. This is not one of them. I built this when I was on a budget about 20 years ago, so it's going to have a lot of cards that are in low condition. When they are in good condition or better, then it is a really eye-catching set. When it's in bad condition, it's not nearly as attractive as you'll find out as we go through the set here. So let's kind of jump into it as we always do, talking about the set itself, the cards, the players, and the 1971 baseball season. Let's talk a little bit about the set before we kind of move on to looking at the entirety of it. So the basic card design has the black borders. It has a portrait photo or an action photo. This is going to be the first set where they featured action photos for the players. Some of the cards actually look pretty cool. Others, you can see the technology just wasn't quite there as it is today to be able to get a really high resolution, high quality photo. So it's a little bit lacking, but it was new at the time, and they were trying to put that into the baseball card sets. Before then, you'd see that sometimes in the World Series sets that they would do within there. Often they were black and white photos, and that was about the closest you got to an action photo, and they never were color at that point, unless it was colored after the fact, which we could tell the difference, obviously. The team is either going to have its nickname listed up here or the full team name, followed by, obviously, the player's name in lowercase letters, their position next to it, and usually a dot of some sort, kind of separating both of those items. There are some errors where some of those things are kind of varied throughout the set series. I'm not as familiar with those. Another big feature of these cards is the cards' backs, where they are completely a green border with a photo of the player in there. It has a little bit of a narrative about the player. It has the most recent year stats, sorry, hit the camera, followed by their career stats listed below. And that's pretty much the basic card design as we kind of go through here. There's not really many variations on the theme here, along with a facsimile signature on there. So this is a Ted Williams rookie card. I picked it up a few years ago. You'll see Ted Williams featured again. Ted Simmons in there. Ted Williams will be in this set too. So as we go through here, I'll point out some of the star players, Hall of Famers, and talk a little bit about the 71 season. But let's get this thing started. All right, so kicking it off, it has a very popular card right at the beginning. Card number 5 of the set is probably the most famous Thurman Munson card. It's one of those action photos. It's the first action photo of the series, of the entire set. As you can see, they were playing the Oakland Athletics at that point, and they were trying to make a play at the plate. He's in his full catching garb back here. This is obviously before he has his mustache on there, which he became later known to have, as well as sometimes a full beard. And it's got the Rookie Cup logo next to it. These cards are also noted for sometimes being pretty much off-center, which was pretty noted throughout the 70s. The quality control really dropped for Topps. You see that a lot in this set. But otherwise, they're player portrait photos, as you can see, for the remainder of the guys on the first page here. Leading off with the World Champions card here, because the Baltimore Orioles won the World Series in 1970, so that's featured in here when they beat the Reds. You'll see that featured again to get the actual All-Star cards. The World Series cards. All right, so as we kind of go through here, I'll talk a little bit about the set. It was released along 7 series. The 6th and 7th series are a little bit more short printed, the 7th series being the one that has the most scarcity. When we get to the 7th series, we'll find out that some cards are double printed, some cards are short printed, which makes it pretty difficult to be able to put the set together if you're looking for a high grade set, because you also have short prints that are going to be also pretty scarce to be able to find, and in good condition on top of that as well. So there's also some other rookies in here that are of note that are not in the Hall of Fame, but were big players throughout the 70s and 80s. Being one is Dave Concepcion, so I'll kind of point him out. Let's kind of jump through here and kind of look at this. This was also like the last year they had flannel uniforms predominantly throughout Major League Baseball. So you can kind of see that this is going to start transitioning in the years to come, where they kind of start moving into more of those nylon-based uniforms. Reggie Jackson, his 3rd-year card featured here above. Then we have Bert Bryleven, his rookie card, which is a pretty affordable rookie card from this set. Phil Niekro up here in the corner. Got good old Lou Piniella down here. Still as a player at that point. Former White Sox manager Gene Lamont featured on here. It might be his rookie card, I can't remember. Jim Hunter, he's still with Oakland. Willie McCovey. Earl Williams is of note because he was your National League Rookie of the Year along with Chris Chambliss for the American League. Not sure if Chambliss is in the set, but if I find him, I'll point him out as we get through there. Here's the checklists. Mine's all marked up, so it's definitely used. At some point, if I ever upgrade, I'll remove those. I got Steve Carlton, still with the Cardinals at this point. Then we have our league leader cards, which are very similar to the ones from previous years, where you have a couple players from the same league, usually in the order which they were featured and finished. So we start with the batting leaders. We have Carl Yastrzemski, Antonio Oliva listed on there, but the leader was Alex Johnson. Then we have Joe Torre, featured here on the batting leader card. He was second that season, but he batted .363 in 71, and actually was your league MVP, along with Vida Blue of the Oakland A's. Vida Blue is of note because he was a pitcher, and he also won the Cy Young Award, along with Ferguson Jenkins of the National League. All right, point out any other Hall of Famers as we kind of go through here. Here's a good one. We got three. We got Bench, Perez, and Billy Williams on the same card. We have Killebrew and Yastrzemski on the same card here. Killebrew was actually the 10th person to join the 500 home run club during 1971 baseball season. And he's joined later by the 11th member, not Yastrzemski, but actually Frank Robinson, who's not actually featured on any of these cards, but we'll point out as we get to later in the set. Here's another one with the same three players we talked about before as being Hall of Famers and the home run leaders. The ERA leaders, we got Jim Palmer featured there. ERA leaders, we got Tom Seaver, who also led the league in ERA in 1971 as well. Pitching leaders here, there's definitely some good players, but no Hall of Famers listed on there. Two of the Baltimore Orioles pitchers, two of the three that actually were part of the three pitchers that won 20 games that season, Jim Palmer being the other, are featured on this card here. Here we got Bob Gibson, Gaylord Perry, and Ferguson Jenkins. Here we got Seaver, Gibson, and Jenkins again. We'll move on and go back to the regular players. So here's some of the action pictures. There's probably one about every 10 cards. There's an action picture from this set. There's Bill Melton, the home run leader from 1971 for the American League. Bob Lemon, Hall of Fame player, manager of the Royals at this point. Good old Louis Tiant. Pete Rose, up here in the corner, card number 100. When you see these cards in good condition, they are stunning. When they're bad condition, they don't look so hot. I have a few that are really hard to look at, as you'll kind of point those out as we get to those. Here we have Bill Mazeroski. There's Ted Simmons again. Another checklist. Mickey Lolich, I believe, led the league in strikeouts that season. Gaylord Perry. This was actually the last year, before we leave the page here, that the Washington Senators played in Washington. They moved to Texas and started as the Texas Rangers in 1972. We've got the Brewers uniforms here, still kind of modeled after the Pilots uniforms at that point. Tom Seaver. That's a pretty good condition card for that one. My favorite pitcher from the 70s, Tom Seaver. Al Kaline. Gil Hodges, manager for the Mets. Little Bobby Valentine. And here we got our playoff cards. This is the AL playoff series. The AL playoff series for that season. I can't remember who they played. I think they may have played Detroit, I think, in 1970. But for 71, your playoff teams were actually the Pittsburgh Pirates and the San Francisco Giants, the Oakland Athletics and the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles and the Pirates advanced to the World Series. Pittsburgh won 4-3 over Baltimore. That was Baltimore's third appearance in 3 years, and they only took 1 World Series in that time, due in large in part because of the great performance by the World Series MVP, Roberto Clemente. And you'll see Clemente's card later in this set, which is one of my favorite Clemente cards of all time. Beautiful Rod Carew up here. Ron Santo. So here's one that's really beat up. It's hard to kind of see because you have to get really close to it, but creases show so easily on these cards. Any corner wear is going to show immediately, unlike a card with a white border where sometimes some of that can get a little bit covered. Willie Stargell's not much better, featured here. It's also off center, which definitely takes a little bit away from it. So there's definitely some of those features of these cards. You have Bill Russell up here in the corner, which is in much better condition. So it'd be a fun set, I think. If I ever really got back into upgrading, I might start with 71 because it just looks so much better when you have cards that are mid-grade or better. Here we got Red Shandies, Hall of Fame player. We got Jim Cott up here. Yeah, my Cott's not great. Hoyt Wilhelm, still an active pitcher at this point. Good old Johnny Bench down here. Action shot of Joe Morgan. That'd be a cool one, I think, to pick up at some point graded. Mine's got a little crease right there. Otherwise, I would probably say mine's not too bad to send in as is, but the crease is going to bring it down. But it's a pretty cool little action shot, I think, from that angle. Remember, the photographers were still, I think, on the field at this point when they were taking these pictures. Wonder how many of them got hit by bats and balls fouled off when they were trying to get some of those pictures. 71 was also the final year where you saw cards from Ernie Banks and Jim Bunning, both retired at the end of that season. So we'll kind of see those cards in a minute. It was also the year in the Hall of Fame where Satchel Paige was actually inducted. It was pretty cool. Also, something that's of note, another thing that happened during that season was that Bill White became the first African-American broadcaster to be featured on national broadcast, which I think is pretty cool. There's Ferguson Jenkins, the Cy Young Award winner that season. Tony Oliva. Good old Bobby Bonds down here in the corner. Here's my first card I got from the 71 set, Brooks Robinson. I got it from a card shop in a local suburb when I was a kid. My dad took me there probably in 1987. And I picked up a Brooks Robinson card at that time because he was, quote unquote, my favorite player at that point, as I was still learning that he wasn't an active player. It was really cool picking this one up, and it's one of the more interesting action photos. You can see he kind of swung and missed there. You can see he put all of his effort into that swing, whereas next to Ed Kirkpatrick looked like he definitely made contact as he was kind of following through, and you see his eyes were fixed on probably where the ball was going at that point. Some of the action photos, you can't really tell who this is supposed to feature. This is obviously Tommy Agee's card. He's with the Mets, and that's Tommy Agee, but you're like, okay, there's the shortstop and the second baseman, so it could have really been any of the players on the card. Could even have been an umpire card. So that's some of the limitations of the action shots during that time. They really get kind of, unfortunately, the 73 set does a terrible job, I think, with these types of pictures where it's kind of hard to see who the card is actually about. And then they started to improve a little bit thereafter. But this is where you kind of start seeing the action shots and some of the ones that they're trying to capture the play. But they just didn't have the lenses to be able to pick up the speed of the play and also zoom in the same ways they can do now. Little Craig Nettles down here. Maybe a future Hall of Famer. Juan Marichal. We have the World Series cards actually were in color, unlike the playoff cards, which are pretty cool. You can see there's definitely some Hall of Famers featured in here. Frank Robinson showing his muscle. Brooks Robinson commits robbery. And then obviously they went ahead and went on to win the World Series at that point in 1970. Steve Garvey's rookie card. That's a key card in this set. Actually had the O-Pee-Chee one for a little while. I don't know. I think I gave it away. It would have been nice to have both in hindsight. I think I got the O-Pee-Chee in a lot when I was trying to put this set together. And I wanted the Topps card, not the O-Pee-Chee. At that point, I think a lot of people weren't coveting the O-Pee-Chee cards in the same way they kind of do now. So it just is what it is. Billy Williams. Oops. Bud Harrelson's another one. I think Bud Harrelson's the one applying the tag. I don't know. I think that might be Nolan Ryan, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Don Sutton. We've lost a lot of players to have passed in the last 3 or 4 years, and definitely a lot of players who were alive when I built this set. They're no longer with us. It's one of the things that's kind of striking me now as I'm looking at this set right now. Onto the 4 series here. Ted Williams. One of the few cards I think you'll ever see him like smile like this. That's why I think I love that card so much. I don't think he did a lot of smiling with the Senators in his last couple seasons with them though. Somebody must have said something awfully funny. And we got Maury Wills. Al Oliver, I think someone else should be reconsidered for the Hall of Fame at some point. Hank Aaron, love to upgrade that one. It's not in the best condition. So some other things that happened during the season is on the 14th of August, Bob Gibson actually pitched no-hitter against the eventual World Series champion Pittsburgh Pirates. And another thing of note is, speaking of Pittsburgh, on the 1st of September in '71, this was the first time any team had fielded an all-black lineup in the field. I think they didn't know necessarily that was something that was happening at the moment. Maybe the manager knew something. He was doing something that day. But it was pretty cool moment. So this is kind of a funny one. This one's actually autographed. This Don Pavlich card. So at some point I probably would want to upgrade it to get one that's not, but hold on to the autograph card. I thought that was kind of interesting because when I was like putting lots together, they had, that card was in there and it was autographed. So I thought that was kind of interesting. These cards are really pretty and they're in good condition. Good old Wilbur Wood, a lot of good seasons for the White Sox during the 70s. Greg Levinsky, great player during that time frame as well. Here's Bob Gibson, just talked about him. Good old Tim McCarver. Earl Weaver. That one is pretty good. It's off center, but it's good condition. We're gonna move into the 5th series now. We got some big names in the 5th series actually. Good old Hawk Harrison. Just below him we have the Nolan Ryan card. I always thought mine was maybe not the best condition, but now that I kind of look at it, it's not bad. I've seen some that are worse, that are out there that people covet in the community. I don't know, maybe like a 3 or 4. That's not too bad for that card. I think a lot of people love this one. It's their favorite Nolan Ryan when he was with the Mets. I always prefer the cards when he was with the Mets, personally. I think I just like that uniform better. And obviously, he won the World Series when he was part of that team, which I think also kind of has some place in my memory of why I like those cards. But I'm definitely a bigger fan of the 69 and 70 for him. And then probably 71 and 68 being thereafter, even though it is his rookie. Oh, that's a beautiful, I think a pretty good copy of that card, now that I look at it. It's never been a cheap card, even 20 years ago when I was putting this together. Go Tommy John. As I mentioned, the last card of Ernie Banks up here in the corner. It's a weird picture, I always thought it was. Looked like they got him saying something mid-sentence and they just took the picture and used it. Probably they could have redone that one in hindsight. Little Bill Buckner down here next to Carl Yastrzemski. Mine's got some good corners at the top, but in the bottom they're dinged up. But it's beautifully centered. Card's got great registration otherwise. Curt Flood, I think, is definitely an important player during this time. This was when he was starting to fight the league because he didn't want to get traded to Washington. So this is actually an airbrushed photo. He never actually played for the Washington Senators, which I thought is kind of interesting too. Or he might have, but like, I think he got traded to Philly. The year before, I didn't play for them. I think he did play a little bit for Washington, but he was pretty much washed up at that point. I believe that is his story. Feel free to correct me in the comments. Good old Harmon Killebrew, as I mentioned. Jumped into the 500 home run club, was the 10th member, and Frank Robinson joined him later that season. Going back to Nolan Ryan for a minute, actually he was traded at the end of the season, end of the year, on December 10th, 71. He was traded to the Angels at that point, so this is the last time he features as a Met. His fact, his 72 card is an airbrushed photo of him in a Met uniform, but they make it look like he's with the Angels at that point. Rusty Staub and those beautiful Montreal Expo uniforms from the early 70s. Well, Alston, Hall of Fame manager. Beautiful Jim Palmer up here in the corner. Jim Bunning, it's a really good condition card there. I had a lot of these from Greg Morris cards back in the day. Through auctions, they were always breaking up sets. There's Tony Perez, another good one. Willie Mays. I've had this one for a while. I think I bought it as a gift to myself when I got my very first job out of graduate school. I bought the Willie Mays for the set, and I may have already been working on the set at the time, so I think that was the connection too. We got Orlando Cepeda, Leo the Lip, DeRocher. One of the 6 series. Some big cards in the 6 series too. The Lou Brock, notoriously off-center card. Mine is off-center as well. If you find one that's centered and it's well-conditioned, it's a very expensive item. Then we have the Roberto Clemente featured on the same page here. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see the full card. Mine's been well-loved. It's got wear on all the corners and the borders, so it wouldn't grade very high, but it's got good registration as far as the image itself of the photograph. And it's well-centered, so that's something the card does have in its favor, but that would be one I would love to upgrade at some point. For all the things I just listed. Speaking of off-center, this one's completely miscut. You can see part of the Angels card for the other player that was featured next to him, next to this tri-rookie card. There's Frank Robinson. It's actually also kind of an expensive card because it's kind of hard to find in good condition. Dick Allen, mine is miscut on here. This card with the Dodgers right before he became a White Sox and won the MVP. Fun memories putting these sets together. Be a lot more expensive doing it now. Sparky Anderson. The Boog Powell's a sneaky expensive card if I remember correctly too. Might be one of the short prints. This one's definitely expensive, and I think it also is a short print. It's got the rookies of Tom Paciorek, who's a broadcaster and player with the White Sox. I'm sure that's why everyone likes this card. I'm just kidding. It's also got Tom Baylor and probably future Hall of Fame manager Dusty Baker on the same card. Definitely one to pick up there if you're looking for Hall of Fame players and managers. Get it before he's put in the Hall of Fame, so I'm sure that's what's going to happen when he retires. Hall of Fame manager Dick Williams. Tommy Aaron, Hank's brother. We're getting near the end here. Well, Mike Shannon, who passed a little earlier this year. Mike Shannon's got some expensive cards because he was also in like the high series of a lot of the products he was in. Not because he was a great ball player. He definitely was a good ball player and very popular broadcaster, but he's in the high series a lot during these eras, which definitely inflates the price of his cards. Got Luis Aparicio in a White Sox uniform with an airbrush cap with the Red Sox here. And our final page. Final card in the set is Dick Drago. Mine's in pretty good shape on there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, this is the 1971 top set. Feel free to send me any questions you have. If you have questions about building the set or any comments about the video, feel free to kind of add on there. I appreciate the feedback. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I love sharing these with you guys, and I'd say this was like the last really big set that I've completed so far that I haven't had a chance to share so far. I've enjoyed it. I have a lot more sets from the later 70s and going into the 80s that will be featured in future months, and as well as the sets that I complete from this point going forward with the sets that I'm currently constructing. All right, take care, everyone.